What's up, listeners? Thank you for tuning in to the Figure It Out podcast.
Figure It Out podcast,
where we figure everything out from business, social media, marketing, and more. Because we are always living that marketing life.
Living that
marketing life.
On this podcast, we fuel marketing through education, inspiration, and motivation.
Fuel marketing,
thrill,
education, inspiration,
and motivation.
I am your host, Frank Ienzu. On today's episode, we have Corbett. Corbett does stuff. No, that's too unassuming. Corbett Consultant was born more than 20 years of work in the storytelling industry. He's worked as an actor and is still in love with his craft. Founded in film festivals and worked in government and NGOs, he has run several businesses to some degree of success. Corbett Consultant helps Chinese firms sell their brand to Western clients. He says brand because he believes we truly care about the purchases we buy from the individual or the company we trust. Cory would like to mention a couple of people before we begin the podcast. Without their direct contributions, his life and business would not be what it is today. First mention is his grandma, Joan Corbett, and the second mention is Wu Meng. Ladies and gentlemen, Cory Corbett.
Hi, Frank. It's great to join you today.
Yeah, I'm excited because I'm in Ottawa and you're in Hangzhou, and I used to live in Hangzhou. And even though we didn't get to meet in Hangzhou, we're still connected, and I'm excited to have a chat with you.
Likewise.
How are you liking Hangzhou?
Interesting and beautiful place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, every day I am just trying to learn more and more about both the language and the culture that I have chosen to start my business in.
Have you had any struggles starting your business, being in a new country with a new language?
Yeah, absolutely. And, overcoming those challenges as an entrepreneur is something that I'm well accustomed to. However, the language barrier itself does prove to be quite troublesome at times.
And how do you get around that? Do you use apps? Do you have a translator? Are you practicing yourself? Is there a lot of hand gestures, body actions? How do you get around that?
Absolutely, there is. I'm trying to put in, up to an hour of study every day, which is, according to my peers, the people who surround me, my Chinese or Zhongwen is improving greatly. So I think that if I can keep this up, I'll be less reliant on the translators.
How are you studying Mandarin right now?
Doing a lot of listening to the Mandarin conversation that surrounds me on a daily basis, and using applications such as Anki, which helps challenge both the reading of the Hanzi, the Chinese characters, and also helps with speaking it back out and putting those bytes together to make sense of them. A lot of repetition.
Do you ever have moments when you're trying to say a sentence and they're waiting for you to say the sentence and you're like piecing it together, kind of like a Lego in your head, and then you finally say it and then you're like, yes, I can do it. I said it. And then they're just like, oh, okay, finally. You ever have those moments?
Oh yeah, all the time. Pointed in the middle of conversations with often twitters to outright laughter and hysterical gesturing at what I've mispronounced so badly that people just can't help themselves but crack up laughing.
When you do business in China, how much of it is it in English and how much is it in Mandarin or in Chinese?
It's almost totally in English, which is why I'm studying so much Chinese, because I would like to start changing that.
Mm-hmm.
And, those people who surround me, especially my girlfriend who's sitting opposite me right now, is a wonderful help in terms of bridging the communication gap that exists.
And what got you into wanting to be an entrepreneur in China? Because I know when we talked before, you've been around many countries and done a lot of business elsewhere. What brought you to Hangzhou first, and why China?
Okay, so I might actually start with why China first.
Mm-hmm.
It was About 6 years ago, I was working as an actor in Melbourne, Australia, where I'm originally from, and a Chinese production came to film in Melbourne, Australia. They shut down part of the CBD. Although I was only playing a small role, just an extras part in that production, what I couldn't help but notice was the immense amount of financial resource that this Chinese production brought with it. It brought actors from mainland China, from other countries around the world, Russian, Belarus, and it was a clear sign to me that China was investing heavily in their media and arts. And it was a very, very attractive idea that was planted inside me at that time to check out more about what China was doing, and perhaps from the dying industry that was Australia's arts and entertainment industry, I might actually be able to get a foothold into the Chinese industry.
How much time did it take you to prepare for that? Like, okay, you saw the opportunity, you saw the idea. How much preparation did you need and research did you put in before you took the leap to actually move to Hangzhou?
Initially, it was just about downloading WeChat, which is an all-powerful application that it's a Chinese company, as you're well aware, Frank, but perhaps for our listeners, it's a mix of most media applications that we have in Western culture rolled up into one.
Yeah.
And through that, connecting with agents and artists throughout China to see how viable the entertainment industry was for this, Westerner from Melbourne who really understood very little of the language.
I've since I've been back, I've actually noticed like through movie premieres or like previews that Tencent, who owns WeChat, is actually, like you said, putting a lot of money into movies now.
Yeah, and I think that it's great. I think that perhaps not most, but a lot of productions coming out of the United States, for example, in Hollywood, are backed with huge amounts of money coming from China. And in that respect, I feel like China is supporting a great deal of the global industry of, putting films together from, productions like Star Wars. Not hard to see the logo of Tencent pop up on the screen as, one of the major funding contributors to the production.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. You're kind of going back to WeChat. WeChat is life. It's just compared to all the other apps, it does everything. Send files, images, videos, group chats, text, like money transfer, which is just, I don't know why. I don't know. I can't speak for America, maybe in Australia, but for Canada, it's like people still use their debit cards. And I'm like, why do you still have a debit card? So it's pretty interesting how powerful WeChat is.
Yeah, same in Australia. It's debit card everywhere. In fact, like a lot of non-Chinese living in China, we use VPNs to connect with the outside world. And when I do, I still see advertisements for, tap and go,
Yeah,
this use of a plastic card. And it just feels so antique to watch those advertisements in a society where you scan your phone. There's no physical contact contributor to, keeping the coronavirus at bay
it's true.
here in China.
It's true because right now in Ottawa or in Canada, you can't use cash. So, but then people are still using a debit card. It's like it's the same thing, pretty much, almost. And if you just had a scanner, a QR code, it's a done deal. So it would take away a lot of risk of getting COVID. So
Absolutely. And just moving back to my entire launch into China for a moment,
mhm.
what I decided to do after years of thinking about coming to China is I finally made the leap last year, and I moved to the center of culture, which is Beijing in China.
Yeah,
And I set myself on a 5-week trip to China with the idea of fairly firmly planted that I wanted to live in this environment. But again, not knowing anybody in China and not knowing the language were huge, barriers. And since then, a lot of people have called me very brave. I'm not sure that bravery was something that I ever thought of myself before this time, but certainly I'm starting to take that on, as a brave step. Again, more in hindsight, like a lot of discoveries that we make as individuals are. But in moving to Beijing, I didn't know a single human being. And after just a couple of weeks, I felt confident in my ability to both network with local, inhabitants of Beijing and also the business community in Beijing. And it was a really wonderful moment where, yes, I can live here. At the end of December, I went back to Australia to, sort of pack up and finalize my life in Australia and get ready for the big move of everything to China. And of course, in that time, COVID-19 hit.
Yeah.
And so living in Melbourne, Australia is, like a lot of major Western cities, a very expensive venture. I had no income at the time. So I was spending my saved capital just on living. And I didn't really want to go to China, the heart of COVID-19 at, that early to mid-January time, as it was becoming more and more a global crisis that has morphed into the pandemic that it is. And so I decided to go to northern Thailand, to a little place called Pai, which is a very artistic community, do a lot of meditation. And by meditation, the main drivers for that were a solid realization after years of doing full-time work in Australia that both financially and mentally, being an actor on a full-time basis is not a viable option. And that coalesced into, I guess, a little bit of a crisis of putting food in my mouth and paying my bills.
Yeah.
So I needed to come up with a business that I could run because I feel like, I am definitely employable and a very good worker when it comes to working for somebody else's vision and somebody else's creation. I can slot into a system very well. However, more and more throughout my life and my ventures into running film festivals, for example, I'm less wanting to work for somebody else's goal and much more wanting to create something that's new and unique and bigger than myself in the world. And one of my mentors, Andrew Morrissey, who runs a media company in Melbourne, Australia, who I used to study at university with, really challenged me in a really positive way to look at what could be a business service offering that I could bring to the world. So not a fully fledged business idea, not a, massive life goal, not a massive dream, but just one single thing that I could do that I could start asking for money for. Just one simple service. And through the time that I spent in Pi, I was meditating on what could I do as a business offering. And the day that I realized that I could offer media as a form of consultancy to Chinese companies to help sell their business, whether that's just a service business or whether that's a product business or both, to the Western world, was the day that I contacted my girlfriend in Hangzhou and I said, I've got it. We started talking about coming here to China because Thailand was starting to shut down because of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
And starting to think that, well, actually China is now, this is mid-March, looking like the safest place to be. And so with a reasonable amount of difficulty, I was able to book a flight from Chiang Mai to Bangkok, and then flights were cancelled to China. So no company would fly you from Thailand directly to China anymore. Things were getting really kind of locked down at that time. So I was able the day after to get a flight going through Laos and into Hangzhou, where I eventually arrived and spent 2 weeks in quarantine in a 14-meter square apartment in Hangzhou with my now girlfriend, and we've decided to live together since. What I've discovered in Hangzhou is a vibrant business community, formerly the area that Xi Jinping looked after. And I can say that, what he's left behind here in Hangzhou, at the very least, is a wonderful.
How often do you still meditate? Is it like, and have you evolved like deeper into finding yourself and looking into the future through meditating?
Oh, absolutely. So I started meditating at a very, very young age, prepubescent, fell out of meditation for a while, and then started getting back into meditation in my early 20s. It's something that has always drawn me. I know that with even just I think yesterday morning's a great example, even with just 3 minutes of really conscious, focused breathing as a form of meditation, my day was much better than it had been the day before. I would like to be meditating daily, and it's something that I have been striving to do for quite some time, and I hope that I'm getting closer to that, cementing that daily practice. So yeah, I mean, meditation does contribute, I think, a lot to my success, not just of my day, but certainly of my life.
I'm excited to start, and I'm happy that you actually brought it up because now it's like, okay, I met someone who's used it and it's helping them, and like you're taking a big step in a new country, in a new culture, which I've done, and you had motivation from one of your good friends. So now you have someone kind of hold you accountable. Kind of going back to what you said about Hangzhou and Beijing, like you went to a country you didn't know anyone, but then you realize that I can do this, I can network, I can meet new people, I can grow my business, I can grow myself. And I think a lot of people they don't realize that the people in China, whether they're locals or expats, everyone's very welcoming. It's very interesting because you have people from all over the world who are trying to do what you're doing, make a name for themselves, be different. And I think it's amazing how the community there, like it's a big country with a lot of people, but actually it's very welcoming and very supportive.
Yeah, extremely welcoming, extremely supportive. And I'm just taking all of it that I possibly can,
Yeah.
using that as inspiration to maintain my focus of creating this business that is much bigger than myself already.
How did you slowly begin to network in Hangzhou specifically? Because when I would first went there, which was 8 years ago, it was not what it was today. There wasn't all these fancy buildings, Western restaurants, big shopping malls, as many foreigners, as many new tech companies, as many investors. But over the years, it's blown up. And kind of what you said is Xi Jinping really left his presence of success and you know thriving and growth. So
Yeah.
how have you adapted to that?
Yeah, look, I feel like everything that was available to me in a visceral sense is available to me here. So everything you can get in a big city, whether that's, Montreal, New York, Melbourne, Australia, or Los Angeles, we can eat good Mexican food here. And I think that's just one of the ways that this is becoming a really metropolitan hub. In terms of how I've gone about networking here, one of the things that I've done is create an English corner. So I'm starting up a business here in China. It takes a lot of my time and a lot of my energy. I don't know many people here in Hangzhou, so I take it upon myself to say, look, I've got this skill of competence when it comes to the English language, and I've just started an English corner in the local cafe just across the road from where I live, where I invite local Chinese people to come and practice their English. And it's turned into a really rich resource of business owners and employees and students at university that come and not only share their experiences and help me with my Chinese practice, but also gain a lot of rich information about a free place to practice their English language,
Mhm.
which I think, it takes both time and preparation from my point of view to organize it, but gives back in, cultural dividends in terms of that network of community. I think that the Western community here in Hangzhou is already good at organizing networking events, and I've been lucky enough to partake in one of those networking events on social media just recently in Binjang, the home of Alibaba and, quite a new part of Hangzhou.
Hmm.
And in and of that, I'm developing quite quickly a fairly large support network. As you mentioned before, Frank, it's a really lovely and inviting place. If you want to be engaged and you want to be part of life here, people welcome you with open arms. And it's a really lovely experience.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people who've never been there, and it's unfortunate the media, nowhere's perfect. Like whether it's there or even Canada or Australia, nothing's perfect. No one's perfect, and it's like you said, it's supportive, and the people are friendly and they're welcoming. And I have made so many friends and connections, and was brought into different cultures, and it just shows that it's a big city. Like I said, it's a big city. It's a lot of people, and it is like you said, metropolitan. You could get pretty much anything you want there. There's some things in Ottawa that I can't get because it's so small compared to Hangzhou. So it is interesting, and I think it's great that you're doing the English Corner to get your name out there, and you're providing value, you're connecting, and that's going to help down the road for sure. And how has it helped you so far? What was a big step that you're like, okay, this actually happened because I put work into networking? Do you have a story where an example of something really like kind of a reward in a way, not a big one but a small one?
Oh, look, I mean, I've got a reward, I guess, I'm still working on. It doesn't relate so much to the English corner that I set up, but I am a lover of coffee.
Mhm.
Melbourne, Australia is, the hub of coffee, if you like, on the international community.
That's true.
Very much the global, we know how to do coffee culture. Melbourne doesn't get a lot of things right, but in terms of coffee, it's an amazing mecca. You can get whatever you like, from anywhere in the world when it comes to coffee. The range of choice and the quality of the product is, almost unsurpassed. So I have a quest on my sideline of finding out good coffee wherever I am. And my story for this begins on this place called Mao Tea X Mao Coffee. And no, it's not a rich reward at the moment at all. Just finding Mao Tea X Mao Coffee was a mission. There was no directions. It was inside an old banking complex here in Sihu, and the entrance on any side, you had to walk through, for example, a Starbucks to find the cafe.
Yeah.
Finding the cafe was the reward, though. And the reward was OMG coffee. This coffee is, Melbourne quality coffee. And through my girlfriend who helped translate from Mr. Liu, the owner, not only does he give out free little juices that he's made that morning with every person who for every person who comes in to have a coffee in the space, but he told this story about going up to a mountaintop to collect the fresh water that he uses to make those juices. And that was the moment that I think seeded the idea that I want to work with this man who runs this cafe. He cares about his coffee to the nth degree, but his business skills are severely lacking.
Yeah.
I can't see how he's possibly running any sort of profit whatsoever. And just to find the place, you need to call. You can't just stumble across it. It's not in any public area. It's in the atrium inside buildings. It's mostly empty most of the time. And his running costs, though cheap, you know, he's at, I think, 50 coffees a day is his best sort of day. So he's hardly making ends meet at the moment. And I want to keep drinking the good quality coffee. So there's a part of a selfish interest there for me to come in and help him with his business so that I can continue to drink good quality coffee into the future, well into the future.
How I've had the same situations with you where you're like, oh man, I found something that's actually I care about. I also love coffee, and like as much as you do. And you're right, Melbourne's got really good coffee. How did you? For me, I had a lot of struggles, especially at the beginning when I would be like it's the same thing. I would notice that they have a good product, just a bad business plan. How did you approach and what was the trick? Not trick, but what was the key turning point of convincing them to let them trust you and work with you?
Look, that's an ongoing battle,
Okay.
and it's something that is, I walked in and I said, "Hi, I help businesses." There was definitely a conversation, you know, selling the idea that this is my business and that I'm going to do this for you for free, which I think really
Yeah.
helps in any business situation. And I think that the repeat business, the fact that I keep turning up there and, building that level of trust and reliability that, I do actually love the product gives anybody the idea, well, hang on, why don't I just spend 5 minutes and listen to who this person is if they're offering to help me? They obviously care about what I'm doing. And building that trust just through regular visitation to the cafe, I think was, paramount step one.
Yeah, it's totally true, and it is always an ongoing battle.
I think that there is a lot of the same human characteristics here in China that we face in the rest of the world.
Yeah,
I think that I meet a lot of people in my life who say they've thought about going into business for themselves, and people who say they really want to go into business for themselves. But most of the time, what I hear is that talk. I don't actually see that turning into an action. There's a lot of, books that I've read and, talks that I've listened to, and a lot of the same advice gets pushed out again and again by people who have already made their businesses and who've already become successful in any respect, whether that's just the local, cafe across the road who, they make enough money to pay their bills to do a little trip every now and again and to have access to a vehicle. And, they feel proud. But this idea that starting a business, you have to go all in is not the case in this digital world. And so almost every single person that I encounter doing this, I keep trying to encourage them, just start. If it's just 1 hour per week, please just put that energy, put that, you know, 10 years that you've been telling people that you want to start a business into 1 hour of actual business work once a week. You don't have to quit your full-time job, but what you have to offer to the world, and I believe all of us do have something that we can improve this world with. We've all grown up in very different ways to each other, and it's that connectivity and communication between us that I think makes us stronger in humanity. And that can be turned into a business tool. So if somebody says they want to start their own business, I'm like, please just start. Put an hour in per week and, start feeling the reward of getting that happening.
I love what you just said because it's so true. Put like just do a little every day. It doesn't have to be big steps. Just the first step is the most important. Even just an hour a day. Don't watch Netflix. Don't scroll on Instagram. Put an hour a day. Read that extra paragraph to learn what you need for your business. And I actually had a conversation with someone recently, and he said, try to be 1% better every day. And if you do that in a year, that's 360% more than you were before. If you do that every year.
Yeah, love it. And I think that in that, just surrounding yourself with positive things, for a chunk of your day is a really good step towards that, because you don't have to look far to be disappointed or to be convinced not to do something. That's easy to find prohibitive measures in the world when our reptilian brain, thinks, oh, one missed day at work, possibly fired, possibly the end of food, possibly the end of my house, possibly the inability to pay bills, and I'm dead.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's really easy to follow that negative loop. And so one of the big things that I'm about at the moment is creating positive loops where you put out good energy or you receive good energy, whether that is an amazing podcast or whether that is, an inspirational, subject matter that you're reading or listening to. But put that in, because what you end up putting out is what you put in. You are what you eat is
Hmm.
an old symbol of, humanity that still holds true. Put healthy things in your body and you get a healthy output. It's the same with your digital input. If you put the healthy stuff into your body, the inspirational stuff into your body, it's really hard not to put that out to the
Yeah.
world later on in your day.
No, man, you're totally right. I love the creativity part, and I love the positivity, the positive side of it. And it is unfortunate that somehow negativity can slow us down so fast. And no, you're totally right. Like what you put in, what you put out. Like if you want to be healthy and fit, work out. So no, you're totally. I love what you're saying, and it's totally true. Put in the work, and you'll get rewarded. Like why not? Why would something not work for you if you tried?
Absolutely. And that's where even just a couple of minutes of meditation every day can really turn the tide on how you wake up and how you look at the day, which is why I'm trying to cement that as a daily practice in my life even now.
No, I think, and I'm actually can't wait to start meditating. So I'll let you know how that goes in a week or two, but for sure. How do you use positivity or creativity now going forward for your business?
In every aspect that I can. So I do have a big vision for my business. And at the moment, I am starting incredibly small and for free, which I think is a great way of testing whether or not you want to do it. Do it for free. And if you still are motivated to get up and you're still motivated to do that work for free, well, I think you've got something that you can turn into a monetization. And so, I work with a lot of people, even in the short time that I've been here in Hangzhou, who openly say to me, I love your passion. I feel very humbled by this, of course, because it's really quite something to have people offer up their time and energy to me, whether as a resource or whether they have something they want to impart to me and they feel passionate and motivated to do so. I take that not lightly. And so when people notice how passionate I am and that they want to work with me because of that passion, I feel like I'm in that positive feedback loop. I'm surrounding myself with positivity. My output is being received positively. And then the people that I'm choosing to work with and surround myself with are, inspired by how positive and how passionately I'm chasing, my means.
No, I think it's a great approach because you can't just show up and be like, "Hey guys, like work with me. I'm gonna make you rich or whatever." Like you're providing value. You're showing what you're worth. You're showing what you can do, and you're showing that you're passionate. And I think that for sure is going to go a long way because people love that, especially nowadays. And I think we talked about this last time is like the storytelling and like it's
Well,
just
that's what it is.
yeah.
Life is a story.
Hmm.
You know, the people that we celebrate and the people we put up on our pedestals, whether they're our personal heroes or our business heroes, we like their story. We may not even know who they are personally, but what we like is the story that they've put into the world. And those stories help to inspire us to reach, our next level of greatness. Now, I might completely fail for, who knows how long. I don't feel like I'm failing now, and I don't feel like failure is a bad thing. I think not learning from your failures is not a positive thing. But also from a philosophical standpoint, then there's something to look at to learn, why is it that I've got this block? Why is it that I keep failing in this way? And I think that this is a measure for, okay, do we start to look at, are you just trying to do something that you don't have the skills or resources to do? And is that the reason that we're failing? Because those are learnable skills. You can find those resources. Or, is it something that you actually don't want to do? Are you just trying to keep up with the Joneses? In which case, following that career path, following that, architectural style of, getting the same house as the next door neighbor, might not be something that's going to suit you ever, because personally you don't relate to that on a level that's meaningful for you. So if the only thing that you're trying to do is keep up with somebody else's appearance, then that's all you're ever going to really get to, and you're probably going to fail along the way because there's nothing personally driving you to reach that goal.
You just said how you kind of, I don't want to say you accept failure, but you don't mind it, because sometimes you gotta learn how to win by losing. What is that keeps you motivated, and you keep pushing forward without holding anything back?
I realized that what my business is extremely positive. Number one, the feedback that I get when I put my business idea into communities is everything from, wow, I want to buy shares in your business already. The mild mannered approach of, this sounds really positive. I want to see where this goes. And it's really hard to ignore, 98% positive feedback. And I think this is probably the biggest area where I suggest to other people who are serious about getting their business off the ground is put that idea out into the community. Post it on your social media, post it, on your LinkedIn, put it into your conversations with your friends and your colleagues, and ask them, if this service exists, what would you think about it?
Yeah.
Would you use it? Would it be something that excites you? Because if what you're getting when you ask those questions is yes, or when is it available, or can I try it now, you've got something that the community wants. And I think the only way to really start a business is to identify a need within your community that you can fill with your business. And if people say that they want what you're going to make, I think you've got the green light to go ahead and start doing it. Your community, the people you surround yourself with, are already on board.
How much of what you want to do and how much you're trying to do, how much of it is a new idea to the community that you're in now, especially in Hangzhou?
It doesn't seem like it's a completely new idea, which, I'm also happy not to be a complete trailblazer. I like the fact that there are people who are already making their livings doing what I'm doing or doing what I'm planning to be doing, which, not only tells me that the people who I'm getting the feedback from are right, yes, this can be a business, but it also tells me that it can be a business that can, pay my rent and, keep me fed. I don't know of many people doing this. Certainly the vast bulk of foreigners who I've met here in China are, either teaching or bringing in Western experts into Chinese business. I've yet to meet anybody who wants to do what I'm doing, which is I want to sell Chinese businesses, their products and services to the West. It will help with competition. So the more that we have healthy competition in our marketplace, the better that the design gets for the implements we use in our daily life or the services. And also the cheaper the price point becomes for us as the end consumer of that product or service. So I just can't wait to add to what seems to be a small pool of people that are really helping Chinese businesses find their footing in the international marketplace.
Yeah, I think after living there and, from everyone that I know, that's a great idea because I don't know that many people doing it and it is hard to do, but not really because kind of what you said earlier with the digital world, post it on LinkedIn, see if it's a good idea, see if people want it. And it doesn't take like even what you said earlier, just try, put in that 1 hour a day and see what happens. And I think if you can get the ball going on this, you're probably laughing.
Well, I kind of think the same. Getting the ball going is how long is a piece of string kind of question. One of the, stories, I guess, that I keep hearing over and over again is this idea that there's going to be a few defining moments in your career or in your life that you've got to be ready for. It's that idea of dress for the role that you want to have tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Dress for the job that you want to be in 10 years. Surround yourself with the life that you want to move into. Who cares if, the person on the street laughs at you because they think you look silly in this environment? You don't want to be in this environment anyway.
Yeah.
You know, most people, when you ask them, are you happy with where you're at? Maybe not most people. I'm surrounding myself with less and less of these people. But a lot of people aren't happy with where they're at. And one inspirational quote I heard just a little while ago was along the lines, an unhappy person, who fits in with the rest of their society, who wants to be hired by that means? Who wants to be hired by trying to fit in with everything else that's happening? That's much harder to, move up any sort of ladder in your personal life or your career life by fitting in to look like everyone else, to behave like everyone else. It's a much easier route just to be you, to be a different version that's so outside the box that make those people who are in the influential decisions in your life and career take notice of you and want to be around that energy that you provide because it's different from the norm. And then if you succeed by fitting in so well, who's hiring you? It's somebody who's disinterested, somebody who's not engaged, somebody who, doesn't put any passion into their search, because otherwise they'd hire the person that is outstanding in their field. They'd hire the person who's outstanding in the way that they live their life. They're a point of difference when all they see is the same sea of grey. And I think that, when you look at life through a lens that allows you to put that into a logical order, it's much easier to get up in the morning to work hard on being the best that you can be. Fuck trying to fit in with anybody else. I like other people, I get along with other people, but why try to be them? Why try to be in the same ecosystem as them? I've got my own life journey, like we all do. Well, I'll try to live that to the best I can.
Yeah, you're totally on point, because if everyone was the same, it'd just be boring. We wouldn't have interesting conversations. We wouldn't have interesting stories. We wouldn't be able to share experiences. But if everyone, like, I love the word different and creative and even positive. If everyone was different and creative in their own way, think of the stuff that we can come up with.
Oh, this would, it already is an incredible world that we live in.
Mhm.
But yes, it's just getting better and better.
I find after living in China and coming back here, and I don't know if there's just more people, which means more brains, but there's also a lot more like it's more competitive, I think, and that's why I think it's just people aren't realizing how booming, especially Hangzhou is, and then how fast things are growing. And I don't know, some parts are going to be like, "Whoa, where did this come from?" And I think it's from being different, being creative, and moving forward.
Absolutely. Look, we have such a rich life in most civilized places in the world. We're looking at less war than ever before at this point in history. There's less famines than ever before in history. We've eradicated most diseases, really were problem diseases in the world. We've eradicated most hunger, in the world. Yes, these problems still do exist, and yes, they're real, and yes, we should fight for them. But the whole world is starting to look a lot better. You meet people who think, I was born in the wrong lifetime. I wish I was born in the 12th century. No, you don't. Not with no running water, not with no toilet, not with no, showers, no baths. Even if you're a king back then, come near to the luxury that you can enjoy now, even in a second world or third world country.
Yeah, you're totally right. So where do you hope to be? I hate, me personally, I don't like having a time on something. Like, where do you see yourself in a year? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? But where do you, because it just puts more pressure on you, and I think it's a bad idea, but where do you think things will eventually be down the road for you and your new business in China?
Look, I'm actually taking it with a flow, and not to be too abstract with answering that question. It's a good question. There's a lot of things that have happened to me that are completely unexpected. So one of the things that's happened to me, one of the people I look up to is one of my clients, actually, Mario Cavolo. And I thoroughly recommend having a look at his work. throw them into Google and you'll come up with his articles and his videos on Chinese news services, and most recently with George Galloway on RT News UK. He's been, like you and me, here living in China. He's been living in China for over 21 years now.
Wow.
And he's just hit a certain level of fame here in mainland China, which I'm now starting to help to spread to the world. So certainly on my business front, so this idea of Cory Corbett consultancy and selling Chinese businesses to the West, this is a long-term, goal. This is something that I really hope that I can continue to do for the rest of my life. What is that going to look like? Well, at different points, probably very different things. I'm hoping it's going to be an upward trajectory along the way, that it's just going to be successful, holistically successful. But, reality always has plans. And, I can't begin to control, what the next 30, 40 years of my life might look like in a working capacity. I just know that I'd love to continue to do what I'm, starting to do now, or what I'm doing now. But the reason that I bring up Mario is because he was asking for my help to find a publicist. And I knew a publicist in Melbourne, Australia, a good friend of mine, Tess Fox, and coronavirus had just hit and, she'd lost her business, sadly. I asked her and she said no. So I went back to Mario and I said, look, sorry, I did look for that publicist for you. However, for whatever reason, she said no. He said, why don't you do it? And I said, well, I've never been a publicist before. And he said, well, I've never been famous before. And so I said, well, look, I can give it a shot. So wherever my life is headed, yes, I think this business of helping tell the story of Chinese businesses in a way that the West can not only relate to, but actually start to, really grab an affinity for and say, look, I see myself in that story. I see the perseverance, I see the persistence, I see the blood, sweat, and tears of starting my own business or, working in a high level role like a CIO or a CEO of a company and making that human for the West. I think that's going to be a lifelong journey. The other side of my life, though, is doing PR management for Italian US citizen who's been living in China for 21 years and also continuing my creative works and putting on voices for a radio program that is, 240 episodes filming in Beijing, whether I get the role or whether I'm instrumentally successful in pushing Mario forward, I'm going to follow what my callings are in life. And I'm not going to turn a blind eye to them just because, yes, that means I have to put more work into my day. Or, yes, that means I have to structure my day, even more finitely. So one thing that I've been doing is over the last sort of year is, for example, a work process of 30 minutes or 20 minutes. And literally what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Chinese study. And then the alarm will go off. And that's my Chinese study done. And then I'm going to work on the website content, half an hour timer, go. And then stop at the alarm. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the film production, half an hour timer, then done. Because essentially, half an hour is enough time to get something done well. It takes more than half an hour. It means one of a couple of things. One, it's not worth doing, and that's okay. There's lots of things that, you're just better off palming off to someone else or evaluating whether or not it should be done in the first place. Maybe there's a better idea or a better service that you could be going with. And two, if it's too big to do in half an hour, that's fine. But that means that you need help. You need to put in systems. And so half an hour gives you an idea of, well, can I get it done? Or do I need a system to put in place? Do I need consultancy myself? Do I need to consult with an expert in this field to optimize this, whatever this is at that moment?
I love your passion and how dedicated you are, how committed you are, because you're taking it with. It seems like you're taking it with caution, but like right caution. You're like, okay, I know I need to do this, and I know I need to do this little thing, and I know that it's going to be hard, but that's okay. I'm accepting it, and it can't go unnoticed how determined you are. And I think I can feel it on this side of the world, and I think it's great.
Thank you very much, Frank.
So as we head off, what's one thing you'd want the listeners to know, like overall, like whether it's with positivity, failure, starting your own business, working in Asia, especially China? What would be one thing that you'd want to leave at the end of this episode?
That I would suggest to everybody, go for it. That it is not definable by me, it's only definable by you. And that it should be the thing that inspires you. I think that a lot of people, including me, at certain times in my life, run away from their it. It's too big, it's too scary, it's too unknown. But that just means we often need help. Really, I would like to see everybody starting their own business. If you're I don't know, if you're a bank teller, why do you have to work for one bank? Why can't you work for every bank? We live in this digital age. Why can't the best customer service representative work for every company? Because essentially what it is we like to be understood, and we like to feel like we're valued. And the people that leave us with the best impressions when we have interactions with businesses are the people who care about our experience and who are not short-sighted and can see that the experience that we're left with today is the impression that we'll have of that business and the level of want to come back to that business in the future. So, I encourage everybody out there who's got a dream of a business or a dream of something that is bigger than themselves to make it, to not be selfish. And I think that's probably an even bigger thing. Don't be selfish. Your ideas are often much bigger than you. A lot of what I've said tonight is a collection of stories that I've inherited from people that I look up to, follow, and listen to avidly. And they're people who help me and support me in my business. This idea that I'm starting this business and it's my business is true to a point. Without me, this business is not going to advance and move forward. Yeah, that's true. But it's much bigger than me as an individual. Without my clients or without my peers or without my advisors, I don't have this business. This business, if I try to run every part of it, if I'm not paying for the services of a website developer to make my website look good, if I'm not paying people to do the things that I can't do brilliantly, then what I end up delivering to the world is something that's not brilliant. And that's why I can comfortably call myself an entrepreneur, is because I pay people who I find who are brilliant in what they do to do that work that I'm not brilliant at for me. And, that was something that you recommended to me, actually, Frank, was listening to the Seth Godin and Debbie Millman conversation or podcast. And, that was something that just rang through over and over again, is that level of not only persistence, but the idea of an entrepreneur, is somebody who is looking to get the brilliance out of everybody else and then upsell that as, a product output. And someone who does a business, is somebody who gets brilliant at that one thing. And I think that's a really healthy distinction to make in this world that's obsessed with entrepreneurial spirit at the moment.
Yeah, you're totally right, because kind of what Seth Godin has said is you're not for everyone. You can't make everyone happy, but you can have a tribe, right? And what you said is like, I'm not particularly good at this skill, but this person is, and we can work together because we have the same vision. So it's interesting you said that as well.
Absolutely. It's the good stuff. It's the positive loop cycle.
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, like I can tell, I can feel your positivity, your dedication, your commitment, the stuff I've already said. Really enjoyed this conversation. You're very motivational, not just for yourself, but for me, and I hope the listeners as well. Inspirational and educational, and I wish you the best of luck in China and your business in Hangzhou. And this was a great conversation.
Thank you very much for your time as well, Frank. And really look forward to following your journey and seeing how this ends up.
Yeah, me too. So before we go off, where can people find you online?
You can Google my name. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Weibo as of just recently.
Nice. Good call.
And on Facebook. So just Cory Corbett. That's Cory with no E and Corbett with a double T.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot and 再见.
再见. Ciao.
We are at the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, follow, connect, share with a friend. Find me online. Head to my website to learn more, frankenzi.com, FrankiEnzi. Go to my website for daily blogs. Find me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube, and of course here on the Anchor app. FrankiEnzi. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Figure
It Out Podcast. Living that
marketing, life, fuel, marketing,
thrill, education,
inspiration,
and motivation.